Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, we need to take a little bit of a look at Necrozma V. Yeah, that's right. Turns out Necrozma is getting itself a Pokemon V, and this seems like the kind of thing we should have a little bit of a chat about. And if anyone's wondering, yeah, we are going to have to activate the 4 or 5 videos a day button just for a couple of days to make sure we catch up with all the new goodness. Now, our translation, as is going to become a sentence you hear a lot over the next couple of days, is coming from the lovely Antoine Boulet here. And if we start off with the basics, we got 220 HP, which is about as high as we get. Yeah, Zamazenta's got 230, and there are a few that get silly, but 220 is generally the top end. It's got a retreat cost of 3, which means you don't get to use Air Balloon for free retreat. Boo! And you don't get to use buff padding, which on the one hand is a little bit sad, and on the other hand, you can literally just use Cape of Toughness, which has the same effect. So I think we'll be alright. You got a resistance to fighting, which is quite nice. Anything looking to hit Eternatus for weakness will be resisted by you, which is fun. But then again, you're weak to Eternatus, and that is a bad weakness to have right now. Because it's not just Eternatus, it's also things like Spiritomb coming along. And, you know, Spiritomb has been absolutely making hay off of Oricorio lately. Expect it to do the same thing with Necrozma here. No, ladies and gentlemen, we don't like this weakness very much at all. As for being a psychic Pokemon, it does mean you hit weakness against Mewtwo and Mew, which is quite nice. And it means you get to use Horror Energy, so if your opponent attacks you, they have to take a couple of damage counters. So you know what? Could be worse. But what does it actually do? Well, the first attack here, I kind of like the first attack. 1 Psychic Energy, 20 damage to your opponent's active, and 20 damage to 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon. And we've seen attacks like this in the past, and attacks like this in the past have, well, they've proven to be kind of fun. I mean, one of the ones that springs to mind right off the bat here was Manectric EX. Going back a little while now, Manectric EX for 1 energy did 20 to your opponent's active, and 20 to 1 of their bench. So if you're now hitting 20 to the active and 20 to 2 of their bench, this is clearly better. Now, having said that, we did get Xerneas. And Xerneas GX came along with the same attack, 20 to the active and 20 to 1 bench, and it just was nowhere near as good. That's not to say it didn't see any play. There were a bunch of fairy decks that chucked it in as a one-off, but with lower HPs back when Manectric was big, that made it a far bigger deal than the Xerneas here. The Xerneas here really didn't see as much play. Now, obviously, Landorus was a fairly big deal back in the day. Oh, I played a lot of Landorus. 1 energy, 30 to the active, 30 to 1 bench. Same amount of damage, but spread between 2 Pokemon rather than 3. And then, of course, that exact attack came back with Buzzwole, and again was a huge attack. 30 to the active, 30 to 1 bench. Again, you still got 60 damage going on, but it's spreading between 2 Pokemon rather than 3. So we're in a weird situation here in terms of, is this actually going to be any good? Because on the one hand, it's clearly nice doing lots of damage, right? You're hitting the active, you're hitting 2 bench, you can get them into KO range, that's lovely. But one of the great things about Landorus and Buzzwole is they existed in a format where there were loads of 60 HP basics, where the vast majority of evolving basics had 60 HP, which meant that you would be in a really nice position to start taking them down. You'd hit them for 30 damage on the bench, and your opponent would be on the clock. They had to get an evolution going. They had to evolve that Pokemon, and if they didn't, you'd KO them. And that was one of the very best things about Landorus and then later Buzzwole. But firstly, most evolving basics have got 70 HP now, and then you've got stuff like Jirachi and Galarian Zigzagoon that often see play, often don't evolve, but have 70 HP. And then on the other hand, it doesn't really matter because you're not 2-hit KOing a 60 HP Pokemon. You're 3-hit KOing. Against something like a Jirachi, you're 4-hit KOing. Well, forgive me, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think that's going to work. I don't think you're going to be able to 4-hit KO 3 Jirachis. And even if you do 4-hit KO 3 Jirachis, which again is not terribly likely, you're still taking 3 prizes over 4 turns, which isn't terribly ideal. Really, with something like this, you want to be taking a prize a turn. So, I suppose the best I can say about this attack is, it is going to bring multiple Pokemon into KO range. If you need to chip 20, 40 damage off a bunch of Pokemon to bring them into range, this is awesome, but that's the best you're going to do here. You're not getting KOs, but you are bringing Pokemon into range. But we do have a second attack here. 2 Psychic, 1 Colorless Energy, 100 damage. If this Pokemon has any special energy attached to it, this attack does 120 more damage. Now this we can absolutely get behind. Essentially, it turns into free energy, 220 damage. Well, Zacian V is probably the best attacker in the game right now, and Zacian V is free energy 230. But it's not hitting anything for weakness. You are hitting Mewtwo and Mew for weakness, which is totally relevant. So I can get behind this. The issue becomes energy acceleration. I think the 220 damage for free energy is great, but Malamar's not a thing right now. In a format with Malamar, I would love this. I think this would be brilliant, because you'd use Malamar to accelerate the 2 Psychic Energy, you then attach a special energy from your hand, and then you're hitting 220, and you can reliably get this rolling in one go. 2 Malamar on the bench, there's your energy, and you're off and rolling. I love it. But we don't have Malamar right now. And sure, we have a few options. I mean, Porygon Z springs to mind just before the rotation. We'll have about 5 months before the rotation, so it is still very much relevant. And essentially, Porygon Z lets you attach as much special energy from your hand during your turn as you like. So you can just pepper this with special energy, and then of course you will have a special energy attached, and you're absolutely off and rolling. And that's lovely. Do you remember I showed you Orbeetle a couple of days ago? The new Orbeetle lets you attach as much psychic energy to your Pokemon as your opponent has energy out. So certainly in a psychic deck, Orbeetle in the mid-game should be accelerating 6, 7, 8 energy, which will get all the energy on all of your Necrozma. But even when I'm using Orbeetle, there are just other Pokemon I'd rather use. I do like the attack, I just don't know how I'm getting the energy on there. Malamar would work, but it's not here anymore. Porygon Z would work, but it's a stage 2, and Porygon Z decks have been very much fringe decks. They've been winning little tournaments here or there, but they've not really broken through in any major tournaments. I like Orbeetle, but it's kind of mid-game, and honestly, I'd rather use single-prize Pokemon, or Mewtwo and Mew, or something along those lines. We can use Turbo Patch, but Turbo Patch is on a coin flip. You can only play 4 in your deck. It's not exactly, I think, going to work as often as we might like. And I really do genuinely worry that what we've got here is a Pokemon with a really nice attack that we are never going to get to use. Now, if we get any kind of psychic energy acceleration in the near future, I think this is one you are absolutely going to have to keep an eye out for. I think this is one that is going to be really, really good. I'm a big fan of this one. But are we there? Is that happening? Maybe. But it's not something that's here right now. Now, in terms of special energy, obviously horror energy is definitely the one I prefer here, because your opponent has to take damage when they attack you, and you can kind of put yourself in a really fun position here, where you can essentially spread a bit of damage in the early game, and then combine that with horror energy to get KOs on Pokemon that are much bigger than 220, which I do really like. You know, if a Pikachu and Zekrom attacks you with a horror energy attached, they're now in range of your attack, which I appreciate. Outside of that, draw energy draws you extra cards, recycle energy goes to your hand when you get KO'd or when it gets discarded, so I think they're probably the best ones to go for. Or, could always use weakness card energy to take away that weakness, which I did say was bad. Obviously, relying on special energy does make you vulnerable to stuff like Giratina. There is a bunch of special energy hate out there, so do be careful. I think I'm going to have to give this between 3 and 4 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies. That would be barbaric. I don't hate it. I don't think it's a bad card. I think it's a good card with a good attack. But I think the lack of energy acceleration around at the moment and the pretty bad weakness are going to hold it back. But I'd like to know what you think. So let me know in the comment section, would ya? Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.